Hello again, people of the internet. This is Dan and Anthony with ThePreGameNetwork podcast, episode 43,
Mm-hmm.
and back again to talk about more video game shit. Um,
Yeah. Fun and
so
games.
yeah, fun and games as always. Uh, as far as the weekly recap goes, not a whole lot has changed for me personally. I'm
Mm.
still like really into the Mass Effect trilogy, or Mass Effect 2 specifically, and
Mm.
then I'm gonna move on to 3, and then I'm gonna replay Andromeda. I really wanna look at that game through a new lens after like I only
Yeah.
played through it once as opposed to the other games where I've played through through each of
Oh
them
yeah.
at least twice. Um, well, Mass Effect 1 has been two times. 2 and
Yeah.
3, I don't even know anymore how many times I've played through those games. Um, but I really want to go back to Andromeda because, like, I watched a video about it recently,
Yes.
and it's definitely, like, the prettiest Mass Effect and also probably the best playing one, but I want to reserve my
Yeah.
final judgments until after I actually
Yeah.
play it again.
I don't want to say too much until you've gone back and replayed it and I've had some time to kind of collect my thoughts on it too. But
Hmm.
Andromeda, for all the things I don't like about it, there are like a handful of things that you can look at and say like, oh, it was nice they tried this, or oh, they did this part right. And I think while you mentioned it's like it's the prettiest, I do think there are certain scenes and shots that it does well. I do think that the art direction isn't nearly as strong as like the original trilogy.
Okay.
And I do think you are correct in noting that the gameplay, I wouldn't say outright superior, but it does its own thing well enough and it does it well.
Yeah. But I'll definitely have my own thoughts on that in
Mm-hmm.
a couple weeks once I get through 2 and 3. I just finished the Shadow Broker DLC, and
Okay.
I'm really taking my sweet time with it because I just want to retread the game and go through it
Yeah.
comfortably, like at a comfortable pace.
Yeah.
Um,
You've
and
said Shadow Broker's your favorite DLC pack, right? Has that
no, I think the
changed?
Citadel was my favorite.
Okay. I feel like at one point we were talking about it. You mentioned Shadow Broker, but yeah,
That
I
doesn't
like the
sound
suit.
off-brand for me,
Yeah.
because I really like Liara as a character.
Mhm.
Um, but
Then you're
yeah,
you're
I think
treated
like
so well because the writers love Lar as a character too.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I just finished the Shadow Broker DLC, and I'm taking my
Mhm.
sweet time with the campaign because I want to get the best ending. So that
Yeah, you
like I
mentioned.
basically got to do everything,
Yeah,
which
you
is
got the
fine.
Shadow Broker out early then because I know you can do that at pretty much any point after like the
Yeah.
first fourth of the game. So
Yep. Well, because like I don't remember. Liara was a part of the squad, right? In Mass Effect 2, or was she only Mass Effect
no,
1?
she's in 1 and 3.
Okay, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Because I have two more slots to fill in my squad, and one of them is Samara, and the other one, um, I'm blanking on it right now. But oh, it's
I
Legion. It's
Okay, I
Legion.
was gonna say, yeah, Legion. Unfortunately, and this is something I actually, not that I go too far off track, something I wanted them to fix with the Legendary Edition, right?
Hmm.
I don't know how much you know about this, but Mass Effect 2 suffered from a lot of pacing shifts because
I could see that.
the main reason though isn't because the content was like scuffed or they had to make cuts somewhere. It's because the game had to be put on 2 discs, and in order
Yeah.
to balance that and like keep it flowing the right way, they had to make basically shift a bunch of things around, and there's a ton of characters you can't get until later than originally intended, and Legion is one of them. Like Legion is
Ah,
almost
okay.
like point of no return for certain
Gotcha.
things. So it's like it's Legion's just the last guy you get, typically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been really into the Mass Effect 2. Taking my time with it.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I've been playing more Space Marine 2,
Mm-hmm.
as of late. Uh, More PvP stuff. But they added the Data Vault update, which added a new enemy and a new map for PvP and a new. I think I went over this already, so I won't bother repeating myself. But
Yeah.
a little bit of that, which is not like too much. I've been really into Helldivers lately. Again, uh,
It's got you guys
yeah,
hooked.
yeah. Like they came out with like these new breed of bugs, which are just more aggressive overall,
Mm.
and I just started playing on uh just higher difficulties because I'll jump in. and I'll play on like the impossible difficulty because I don't want to like once you go past impossible, it starts to become like really laborious as far as making sure
Mm,
that your squad composition is right, making sure you have the right loadout for the objective, and I just wanted to like have fun and blow shit up, but I've been playing on the higher difficulties now, and it's it's way more chaotic, but in a good way, and I've just been enjoying the game. It's just
okay.
such a cool experience. Like there's really nothing else like Helldivers right now. Um, and then Destiny, the new season. I haven't been playing that nearly
Yeah.
as much. I still haven't even done the new dungeon. I'm gonna
Okay.
try to do that
That's
tomorrow.
kind of surprising almost.
Yeah, I know. Well, like the people that I used to play with aren't really they all kind of dropped off except for like a small handful,
Mm,
and like my schedule doesn't really line up with theirs, so it's tough to set up like a raid or a dungeon. But I am planning on doing the new dungeon like in the next 2 days or so. But that's pretty
okay.
much all I've been playing.
Okay. I mean, as far as I've been playing, I mean, I've said like for like 2 weeks in a row that I have like this building list of games that I want to sit down and play through, but
Hmm.
I've been getting like one week it's I just have a bunch of stuff I got to work on. The next week it's like, oh shit, I forgot content drops for all of my games were hitting. So I really haven't had time, and what little time I've had goes to Harrison and Luke because we do playthroughs and we play Marvel Rivals. So I mean, aside from Marvel Rivals, and I've been playing Resident Evil. We've been doing a playthrough of Resident Evil 7, me and Luke. And then we've been playing this other game called Legend of Grimrock, which is a dungeon crawler.
That sounds familiar.
Um, yeah, it was big when it came out because it hit a niche that hadn't really been played around with all that much, and this was like a decade ago or something. But
Hmm.
I digress. Aside from that, the two games that got content drops that I've been playing is once again it's Girls Frontline and Street Fighter Six. Street Fighter
Okay.
Six in particular, they added another character from Fatal Fury and just everything. Like it's I don't want to say the most fun I've had with the game, but it's definitely like a spark that I needed in Street Fighter 6 because while I had been improving and playing other characters, this character in particular, Mai from Fatal Fury, I'm just digging her gameplay, so I've been playing a shit ton of Street Fighter 6.
Hmm.
But that's pretty much it, and that's just because it's aside from the fact that it's just fun, it's something I can do. I'm like editing, I'm listening to us talk, I'm doing the videos, and then I turn to the right, I play a ranked match, so that's easy enough for me to fit in. So
Yeah, I probably should like hop on Rivals with you guys a little bit more. I
I
just
mean, yeah,
there's
I mean
so
it's
few things about that game that I actually enjoy.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
it's I don't know how to explain it because it's something that Overwatch had also. I mean, we've talked about the two ad nauseum at this point, but basically, like, there's something about these hero shooters and by extension team-based shooters where it's just like, it's got the right pace for everybody that plays games. It's like me or you. We play all different types of games. We have different tastes, and then we have more casual people that can play with us. It's an easy enough game to get into for everybody. So
yeah,
like there's something about it where it's just like that's why we end up playing it so goddamn much.
yeah, it clears a lot of very basic hurdles.
Yeah.
Um, but like a lot, I mean, I guess it is an industry standard for things to be crossplay.
Yeah.
They used
It's
to be a
getting
really
there at the
big
very
barrier
least.
for a lot of different games.
Yeah.
Uh, so anyway,
Oh.
um, as far as was that it? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like just move on.
No, yeah, that's pretty much it as far as what I've been playing.
Okay. Um, I don't know how much stuff that you have to talk about this week. It's been kind of light for me this week. Uh,
Mm,
so I'll start off with like two small things
yeah,
um, that I've noticed. Well, the
go
first
for
one
it.
was there's an article from GameSpot, and apparently EA had the chance to buy Guitar Hero, COD, and Blizzard, and they
Oh
passed on
yeah,
it.
yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, but they're kicking themselves now.
I bet. I mean, it's obviously some of those IPs, if not all of them, ended up with Microsoft. So it's
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting to see EA, who's more of like a sidestep as far as like like the second tier of industry of in the industry of companies, right? Where you have at the very top the massive players like Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo, and then right below that is just the really big companies like Activision and EA. It's interesting that there was something like that was planned at one point, and it
Yeah.
certainly would have. They want that, like you said they're kicking themselves. The one I would say they're kicking themselves the most over is probably Call of Duty. Not just for
Yeah,
the
most
obvious
likely.
reasons, but they want in that particular market so badly, which is why Battlefield has been the way that it is for the way it is monetization wise.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's been a bunch of Battlefield leaks actually. I can't really point to anything like super specific because I don't have anything written down for this. I'm
Hmm.
going off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But according to the leaks, it seems like they are really trying to go back to what made Battlefield so great to begin with, and
Yeah.
that's good. Obviously,
And, yeah,
that's
and it
really good.
aligns with what we actually know and what they're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. But apparently there's going to be like I think they said 6 or 7 different classes instead of
Okay.
the original four. Four being assault, recon, engineer, and
Medic.
medic. Thank you. Yeah, medic. I don't know what the other ones could possibly be, but apparently they're going to be more of them, and they're taking a lot of inspiration from Battlefield 3, which that's kind of old news at this point.
Yeah.
Um, but just from like the map design, that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm definitely my my interest is peaked because I love Battlefield as much as I do, but
Mhm.
I'm not getting my hopes up for anything at this point. Like
Yeah.
we all know what EA is capable of and how they like to run their business, and it's just I'm not getting my hopes up too much.
Yeah.
But I am very eager to see actual gameplay footage. So
Yes.
I think, didn't they say that it's supposed to be coming out like sometime this year, but they're trying to move away from the
I
GTA
think
6
when
launch?
we first talked about it and we first heard about it, every all signs pointed to this year. And then last
Yeah,
week, I think you told me that they had said that they're willing to move the date around based on Grand Theft Auto 6. Yeah.
right. I mean, I guess there is some overlap there as far as like the demographic who would actually play both.
Yeah,
But
I think the way we put it is that the only people unaffected by Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be like niche releases. But like if you look at the casual market, or not the casual market, but like the wider audience, I guess, the ones that do play a lot of the bigger games, right? You have first person shooters, you have sports games, and you have games like Grand Theft Auto. I feel like even though those games don't necessarily play like one another, they have a similar enough audience that you don't want to launch them too close to each other.
right.
No.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. The moral of the story with that one is that I just want to see some Battlefield 6 gameplay because I'll always play something that's set in the modern day. Like I love the modern warfare setting for shooter games.
Yeah.
Um, so it'll always have my attention if a game is set during that time period. But
Mm.
I don't know. Like that's just one very small aspect of the new Battlefield. Um, Going off of release dates. The Borderlands 4, well, no, not the Borderlands 4 got a confirmed release date of September
Yeah.
23rd. So I think it's just going to be more Borderlands, but I don't know. I've always liked it.
So, I
Go
mean,
ahead.
I this actually rolls into something else that I was going to
Okay.
talk about, is that I watched the State of Play and I watched that announcement,
Hmm.
and all I have to really say is it kind of coincides with what we had originally heard about, because I think me and you talked about Borderlands a while ago when it was just a logo getting announced, right?
Probably. Yeah, I
Um,
think so.
and I think what I said is like I don't want to say I fell out of love with Borderlands, but like it started appealing to me less and less, starting with 2. I'm not saying I hated 2. I'm just
Hmm.
saying like that. And one of the things I was curious to see, because it's something that one of the earliest things they said in an interview is that everybody kind of knows their humor has kind of been getting really off the fucking rails,
Yeah.
and they said at a certain point it's like, we're gonna try and tone it down a bit. They kind of wanted to bring the tone back almost closer to Borderlands 1. That's what they had
This is
said,
what
I
it
think.
should be, honestly.
Yeah, and I remember Borderlands 1, I've already said to you, like, far back from, like, the early alpha preview footage, but I also, I think of the first trailers of what we would end up really seeing, and it's like it's drier in a way. Like it wasn't afraid to do like quick snarky stuff and modern poppy stuff, but that was really something that kicked off with 2. And the trailer didn't really sell me on that. It sold, the visuals kind of looked toned down. They weren't as colorful or in your face as some of the other ones, but it did nothing to hook me. I wasn't expecting to be hooked, so I'm not going to constantly bash it. You know, there's only so much I can fucking say about how uninterested I am in Borderlands 4. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I mean, I'm, you know how I am with those games. Like, I'll probably stick around for like 40 to 50 hours and then either lose interest or just move on to something else.
Yeah.
Like I played Borderlands 3 all the way through 2 times, once on console and once on PC. I probably have like about 100 hours in that game in total. I just I like the looter genre, as you know, and
Yeah.
it's a fun way to kill time. And I just, you know, these games have an end game, right? And
Mhm.
I've never gotten to the end game of Borderlands 3 or Tiny Tina's Wonderland.
Mhm.
Um, and I would assume that I'm not going to get to the end game of Borderlands 4, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
I
that
mean, it is what it
it's
is.
it's interesting that you say that because honestly, like if I had guessed, I would say that maybe you had beaten it once, but like hearing you tell me that you beat it twice, it's definitely a genre thing with you. I think it's just the genre is appealing to you.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
don't think
literally all it is.
yeah, I don't think Borderlands has its own unique appeal and charm in your for you, I would say in this case. Just because like
Well, the
every time we talk
Borderlands
about it,
appeal, as far as like the humor and all that shit goes,
yeah.
that that probably did die with Borderlands 2. Borderlands 3, I thought was a competent enough shooter that had a good loot system
Uh-huh.
and skill progression that I was interested enough in it to stick around for as long as I did. Um, I don't really know what Borderlands 4 could possibly do differently to quote unquote hook me. I'm still gonna play it
Mm,
eventually. I don't know if I'm gonna play it at launch, but I'm still gonna play it. Um, just a question of like what it's gonna do differently from Borderlands 3 and from everything that I've seen so far, which has only been 2 trailers, 2 very short trailers, mind you.
mm.
It's not gonna be that much. So, you know, I don't know. We'll see how it pans out. I don't know if I'm gonna pay $60 for it, but if it goes on sale like a couple months down the line, then I'll scoop it up for like 30 or 20 or something.
Yeah, I think
So,
another thing that makes it probably difficult, especially nowadays, is this is a problem we've had almost consistently throughout time. It's like for games like Borderlands or Diablo or any of these kind of RPGs with looting elements, right? It
mhm.
is hard to find a time to get a crew together to play these games. And I
Yeah,
think, you know, well, like I'm gonna say I'm gonna put it this way: it's not that you couldn't if you really wanted to, but I don't. Is Borderlands really the game you want to bend over backwards to find the right time to get 3 other guys together
I
and
know.
like do that? And if you're playing it by yourself, like, what's the fucking point?
Yeah, yeah, no, I get that. But like this is part of my problem with the current gaming landscape is that there is so many good enough offerings that I am interested enough in that like it really comes down to what I'm going to pick and choose to spend my time on.
Mhm.
And it's harder than it sounds, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'll open up my Steam and I'll go to my library and I'll see no less than 3 different games that like I'm interested in playing right now.
Mhm.
And then it's a matter of deciding which of those games that I want to play. Um, and it's a harder decision to make than I feel like people either realize or would give like credit towards that type of scenario. Um, you know, and naturally I'm going to gravitate towards anything that I have someone to play with.
Yeah.
And a lot of times for me, that's Destiny because I have at this point, like a really small group of like internet friends that I played Destiny with for coming up on 5 years now.
Yeah.
Um, and they're still into it. So like if they want to do the new dungeon or something, or just do whatever, like I'm probably gonna play with them.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the fact that it's Destiny, although it doesn't hurt. Um, Games are always more fun with friends than not. And I
Yeah.
feel
Of
like that's a
course.
stupidly obvious statement, but you
Yeah.
know, when you're sitting in front of your library trying to decide, do I want to play Destiny? Do I want to play Helldivers? Do I want to play Space Marine 2? Do I want to play, you know, COD or Dark Tide or whatever the case may be? whatever I could get somebody to come and play with me with, like that's what I'm gonna choose 100% of the time. So yeah.
Mhm.
So going back to the original point here, like Borderlands 4 probably not gonna be it. I'll play through the campaign,
Yeah.
but I don't know if I'm gonna stick around for any more than that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. Anyway, that was the Borderlands 4 brief news tidbit that I wanted to touch upon. I've been going on a little bit of a tirade here, so if you want to throw something small out, because there's like one big thing I want to get to for
Yeah, that
like the games that
works.
I pay attention to this week, but
Yeah.
I could save it.
So to kind of like, because this is gonna sound big, but it really isn't. Like I
Mhm.
said, is I saw Borderlands 4 at the State of Play. Did you watch the State of Play?
I didn't watch State of Play. I saw a couple different trailers from it. There's actually this one game that I saw today that looked pretty interesting to me.
Okay.
Um, did you hear of Metal Eden or
Metal
see anything about
Eden.
it?
I mean, I must
I
have
think
seen
that
it if
was
I
at
watched
State of
it. Hold
Play.
on. Hold on, let me see.
I think I could be wrong, but the
Metal
trailer came out like
Eden.
2 or 3 days ago.
Metal Eden. I don't know if that was at. Oh, is this Yes. I'll be honest. This didn't stick with me, but I did see it.
I mean,
Is
it's okay. So you saw it. Are you surprised that I am mildly interested?
No, not in the slightest. I
Yeah,
actually, you know what?
yeah.
Now looking at it again, I definitely, whether I said it aloud to myself or if I thought, I'm just like, this looks like a Dan kind of game, just because like
It's like a really weird blend between Doom 2016 and Ghost Runner. Does that
yeah,
make sense?
I can kind of see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do I
So
feel
I
like
watched
I mean,
like 20 minutes of gameplay today. I'm like, this looks interesting enough that I would play it if it was like $15.
uh,
But
I don't know, something about
yeah.
it also like it's obviously much faster than Destiny, but what isn't? And it kind of like
I'm
maybe
gonna
something
leave that
about
one
the
alone,
art.
but I heard it, you
Yeah,
motherfucker.
maybe something about the art style. I don't know. Something about this also makes me think Destiny,
It's the
and I don't know why.
sci-fi setting with like the
Yeah,
fast movement shooter mechanics.
yeah,
That's really what it boils down to.
yeah, that's probably it. But no, yeah, I definitely I saw this and thought of you for whatever that's worth. So that doesn't
Well, you do
surprise me
know
in the
me,
slightest.
so
Yes, I certainly do.
yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
anything else you heard about the state of play or no?
I feel like there was at least one other thing
Okay.
that like
Oh,
passed into my sphere of influence.
yes.
However, not big enough for me to remember right now.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna do a full recap of it. I did
Oh
like take
wait,
a.
there was the House Marquis new game, Saros, I think it's
Oh
called.
yeah, that's like the Returnal guys, right?
Yeah, they said that they wanted to make another game like Returnal, but not as punishing. So, and it looks just like Returnal,
It's
like
actually
for what
funny.
it's worth.
It was such like a it's one of those teasers where they show next to fucking nothing, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just like the art style and the like how it like the development stuff around it that you can kind of see like who's been here just by like looking at it, you kind of get that feel, right?
Hmm.
And the fact that they said like something in the dialogue in the brief teaser basically said something along the lines of we're gonna do this again and again, or resurrect, I'll keep coming back, or something like that. I forget exactly what he said. I'm just like, this is a fucking roguelike, isn't it? And I'm just
Yeah,
like,
of course it is.
no, that's what I'm saying at the moment. I know what it is now, before the like as it was being shown to me for the first time ever. I'm like, you son of a bitch, this is just a this is just another fucking roguelike. I'm just like, I'm sure some people will be happy about it. My understanding is Returnal was like a solid 7 to 8 on how people received it, so that I'm sure that game has like
I
a
enjoyed it
niche
for the little bit
audience.
that I played of it, but
Mhm.
I can't like I lose interest in roguelites so fast.
Why the fuck are you excited for this one?
I'm not excited, it just looked interesting.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump down your throat. I just with roguelikes, I get passionate about this, but
Yeah, for real. Fuck.
so I took some notes. You know, nothing too crazy. There was a game that showed up, and it's called Lost Soul Aside.
Never
And
heard of it.
it's funny that you say that. I'm sitting here and I'm watching it, and I'm like immediately I'm just like, look, before they did the title drop, I'm just like, this game looks fucking familiar. I've definitely
Okay.
seen this game before. And the title pops up, and I'm like, son of a bitch, wasn't this game announced like a decade ago? Like, and sure enough, it was. Like, Dan, you gotta understand, this game, Lost Soul Aside, it's like an action RPG, right? and
Okay.
it has a lot of elements from Final Fantasy 15. This game was announced when Final Fantasy 15 was new, like a decade ago, and everybody was just like shitting on Final Fantasy 15 at the time, so they're just going, look at this similar game by an independent developer that's going to totally eat its lunch. It is the Final Fantasy 15 killer. And it never fucking came out. And it's like, okay, it's finally got a release date this year. I'm like, what have you been doing for like the last 9 years?
Yeah,
And it's
I don't understand how things take that long.
because of the nature of its development and the fact that it does share or have, I don't want to say ripped off, because I was willing to chalk it up to coincidence back then, but it has a lot of elements from Final Fantasy 15. It's almost like a weird time capsule of a game. I'm just like, all right, I didn't hate Final Fantasy 15 like everyone else. Maybe I'll look at this eventually. So there was that.
Okay.
The Until Dawn guys are making some kind of space horror thing. It's like Directive 8042 or something. They didn't show gameplay, but I'm pretty sure it's just going to play like an Until Dawn, which is like, you know, like a cinematic kind of game. Not like point and click, but kind of like that, where you're leading characters around and doing different things. And it's basically a bunch of guys trapped on a spaceship or a space station. And there's like a thing like alien on there. And I got nothing to say about that. I don't even know why I brought it up.
Okay.
Capcom was there. They showed off the surprise Onimusha 2 remaster. Looks really nice.
I did see the gameplay of that. That did look fun to me.
Did you see? But which one did you see? The Onimusha 2 remaster or Onimusha Way of the Sword? Because they showed them back to back.
Way of the Sword.
Okay, yeah. Way of the Sword looks interesting, and like the little tidbits of story and character we saw is like the kind of stuff I like to see. It's not necessarily one-to-one with the old ones, but that's not what I was really expecting with this, but it looks fun to play. And it looks like the developers are actually passionate about making this one, so I'm like, I'm on board with the new Onimusha. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater got, or is it Metal Gear Delta? I don't even fucking know. They did this weird thing. I think it's Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater.
Titles of these fucking games.
It's the remake of Snake Eater, and it looks respectable. Their big reveal is the return of this mode called Snake versus Monkey, which is like this little, like, you ever hear of the game Ape Escape?
No.
It was an old PlayStation game. They did 3 of them. They're considered classics, and the whole thing is like you go around capturing these like monkeys, right? And the only reason I'm really bringing this up is because we had recently talked about how Xbox is kind of like going to different platforms and shit, right? And I said, like, Sony and Nintendo are definitely sitting there just laughing because they would never fucking do that. The length to which Sony is like showing they will keep things exclusive, this mode that's based off this older game that hasn't really received much love, but is still considered a PlayStation exclusive classic game, right? That mode will not be on Xbox consoles. They are making an entirely different mode for Xbox users. That's how protective of their IPs, like their legacy IPs, they are. Like,
a bit much.
Yeah, and it's going to be like a Bomberman kind of thing, like the literal Bomberman, because they own Bomberman. And that was just something that I found very funny, because it was like hot off the heels of us talking about like IPs, and it's like, oh, this PlayStation will never fucking play nice with Xbox. At least not in the foreseeable future. Aside from that, what else we got? Liza P, that Pinocchio Souls-like, it's getting an expansion. The guy I know who's really into it seemed to like the DLC, the way it looks, so my understanding is that when that game does get a sequel, it'll be based around other books and shit. Like
most likely. I think more like Grimm Brothers Tales or something.
Something like that. I think they tease they want to do like Oz, like they want to do like Wizard of Oz stuff in the sequel. Okay. That got teased at the end. And this DLC is apparently themed around Peter Pan. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's actually moving on from that. I have a note that says Hell Is Us looked interesting, but I actually can't remember what the fuck it is. So I guess it wasn't that interesting. Got nothing to say about that. There was a game called Mind's Eye. Did you see any of that?
I saw something about that today, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was just like a YouTube thumbnail.
Yeah, so I can't tell you a fucking thing about the story. It had no hooks, didn't catch me at all. But where it did catch me, Dan, is gameplay. It's a gameplay thing that's interesting that you don't really see much of anymore. An open world third person cover shooter. It's like almost
Oh,
like
right up your alley.
yeah, it strikes me as like almost like not one to one, obviously the gameplay's different. Imagine like, you know, the world and structure of like a Red Faction Guerrilla. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
I'm basing that just off of the trailer that they showed, where it is like a world that they're exploring, or maybe multiple small open worlds. I don't want to hype this game up because I don't know much about it, but that's what it looked like to me. But it was open world third person shooter action cover based, and I'm just like, okay, I will keep an eye out for you, even if you don't have. I couldn't tell you what the fuck's going on with the story. And
Okay.
yeah, there were a few other things announced that I just didn't give a shit about. There's a new Sonic racing game that looks kind of cool. There was the remastering Days Gone for the PlayStation 5. It's apparently coming with all the DLC. I'm sure the creator of Days Gone is thrilled about that. As you know, he loves to fucking shout at Sony about that all the time. But yeah, State of Play, I gave it a solid 6, and that's mainly only because I like Sonic and Capcom.
Okay.
So that was the State of Play as loosely remembered as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's nothing is like earth-shattering anymore, you know?
I mean,
Like
that's
the game has got to come out and be like a complete banger to really make any kind of a blip on the radar now.
yes and no. Just because I think you can do these things right. It's just, I mean, we've talked quite a few times about what was it? How there isn't much really getting announced by any of these companies, right?
Hmm.
But man, it's just compared to Nintendo and Xbox, Sony tends to just have nothing. So
You've been saying that for years, actually. That
yeah,
Sony just doesn't have any game.
yeah, and I don't want it to come off as like I'm some kind of like super Xbox fanboy. Like I have the Xbox, but that doesn't make me like I'm not one of those weird console fanboys that like just live and die by the console war. I just like I call it as I see it. The Xbox events, for whatever they're worth, when I watch them, they tend to get like 8s ish. Sony hasn't really given me anything above a 7. Maybe that one year they announced Resident Evil 2. I think that was a State of Play. I don't even know anymore. But yeah, so that was that.
Yeah. Well, there was an article that I saw by Insider Gaming explaining why Marathon wasn't at State of Play, and it really is
Yeah,
essentially what?
I was gonna say like I know a lot of people were upset because there was no marathon at State of Play.
It. I mean, it's not like a huge story or anything. It essentially just boils down to the fact that they want to do their own press conference the same way that they showed off Destiny 1 and 2 for their reveals.
I mean, I'll give him credit for that. I mean, that's kind of the way to do it. When it comes to major game releases that are important to you at the very least, or new showings, you typically do want to have that controlled environment. I have faith that they're gonna, do what needs to be done at that event? No, nobody really does these events all that well. But like, it's better than just cramming it into a State of Play, even
Yeah.
though Bungie and Sony are like joined at the hip now. So
Yeah, Bungie it is a pretty massive studio, but they haven't done anything except for Destiny over the past 10 years. So yeah, I don't know. It's a
Mhm.
weird position to be in because they have like this phenomenal pedigree between Marathon and Halo, and now Destiny. You might hate Destiny, you might love it, but like it is withstood the test of time at the very least, and that's the reason why Sony bought them. So. I mean, they're not just like a slouch developer, even though they've been in hot water more times than not over the past couple of years.
I don't know, man. Like I get that. I get where you're coming with that, but it's just like I look at that, I'm just like they've bled so much talent. Is it even really the same studio anymore? We've talked about that
Yeah, the
before, but
ship
it's just
of
like
what's that term? The ship of like,
thesis.
yeah. You
Thesis,
replace
whatever it's
every
called.
part of the ship. Is it really the original ship? And
Yeah, and I'm
yeah,
like,
I get it.
but here's the thing. Like I don't want to be dismissive about this because game studios, realistically, if you have a good game studio of whatever size and you have a good working culture with the talent where people learn while they're there, they're not just skilled and getting hired, but they're also learning and they're assimilating, so to speak, with the company. You can make that work. I don't buy into the whole like everybody's gone, so it's not the same company. If they foster that same attitude, that same structure over time, it's feasible. You can do it. I just don't think Bungie has.
Yeah, I don't know. I will see what happens with Marathon. I have literally zero hype attached to this title. I know it's an extraction shooter, which is the only thing that is keeping me even a little bit interested because I like the extraction genre. Well, the only reason I like the extraction genre is because of DMZ. And that game fucking died a slow and painful death. Um, but if the leaks are to be believed, then we're going to be getting another DMZ for the next COD. But that's neither here nor there right now. So when Bungie said that they are developing a FPS PvP extraction game, I was like, okay, like first of all, it's Bungie, and I'm not going to not pay attention to it because that's just kind of my wheelhouse. But
Yeah.
everything that's happened to them and all the talent bleed and them just letting go of their entire QA department, I don't know. It's I gotta see something first to be even a little bit excited. I am completely apathetic towards Marathon right now. It just doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think a lot of people are apathetic
Yeah,
about Marathon. That whole like people were expecting it wasn't. People were excited for it. They were just it's just a Sony thing at this point.
yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. Um, the last small thing that I have was there was another extraction shooter called it was made by a company called oh no Level Zero Extraction. That's the name of the
Okay,
game, and
it
was
sounds
supposed to
familiar.
be like a yeah like a fear type of game, but an extraction aspect to it.
Mm.
Um, and it just hit 1.0, and then
Oh,
the company was like, "Yeah, we can't support this anymore. We're closing the
ah,
studio and the
that's
game."
why I heard about it. Yes, I heard that story. Yes, that's something
Yeah,
else, man.
yeah. Like it's no longer feasible for our relatively small team to sustain the game.
Mm.
So why even make it? Like, fucking, you hit 1.0 and then you're just gonna close. Crazy, absolutely
Yeah.
bonkers.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's we're gonna see more and more stories like that as time goes on, and as you know, push comes to shove with all of the with all of the issues that the industry's running with. You know, we talk about corporation level stuff, we talk about cultural stuff, but there's also just smaller devs that don't have the proper experience or the proper planning ahead. You're just getting up with stories like that. I
mhm.
mean, credit to them for getting it out the door. It's a shame that I guess I mean I'm assuming
Yeah,
just
they got it
from
out the door and then it tripped on the first brick it stepped on and fell
yeah,
flat on
but
its
like
face onto a nail.
yeah, but like you never know because you have people that can I don't want to say support it, but like it could pretend like I hate saying this because I don't know anything about the game, so I don't want to pretend like all games are created equal and we must save them, right? Because that's not the case. But there's a whole preservation effort out there by people in general. Maybe in 10 years they'll be like that niche title that never lived, and we'll be reporting about how like that one game we talked about 10 years ago, some crazy preservation nut job got the servers up and running, but basically what I was getting at is like I don't know their structure under the hood, so I don't know if if it's a situation like they got it out the door and now people can play it, or if everything's shut down from the top down. Do you know?
Um, I think people can still play it, they're just not supporting it anymore.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I mean
the
that's
servers will remain online, so the game will continue to be playable, and wipes will continue to happen on the first Thursday of every month. But there will be
there you go.
no further weekend events, and of course, no new maps, weapons, cosmetics, game modes, or any other features.
In my mind, that's better than not getting it out the door at all. It'd be one thing if it was like a Concord where the game just doesn't exist anymore, and you're just
Hmm.
kind of a laughing stock. But it's just like they put their time into it. They got it out, and people can do what they want with
Yeah, yeah. It's a thing. It's a thing that happened.
it. Speaking
Uh,
of things that happened, um, did you hear about the Rainbow Six Siege thing that went
yeah,
on?
it's Siege X now because it's been
Yeah,
around for 10 years and
and
it's
they
doing
want.
something. I got nothing from that trailer, but
I
it's
mean,
something's happening.
I look at it and it's just a mess. Just especially with how they've been doing operators for like the last 6 of the years, I would say it's just a mess to look at.
Yeah.
But they basically the major takeaway is that regardless, they didn't give the full plans out, but they basically said we're supporting this for at least another 10 years. I'm just like, all right. This game got
Yeah, I
more
mean, to
support than the
me, from
original
the
Destiny
outside,
did.
yeah. Are you happy with yourself? You fuckface?
Only slightly. I mean,
Uh-huh.
the
Yeah.
original Destiny servers are still up. You can still play the original Destiny, can't you?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, okay.
To me, Siege just looks like another hero shooter. Nothing more.
Eh, yes and no. My whole thing with like with there's still some of the bones of Rainbow Six underneath there. There's enough of it there. I just feel like I don't even want to go back and really try it unless like it
Yeah,
was
I have no
convenient,
interest.
just because some of the things they did with the operators and some of the, ideological stuff, it's like I'm just not interested in touching that anymore. But like
Hmm.
I look at the like it lost the plot a while ago. Like when we played it way back when, with the original release of Siege, when we played it, it was like, okay, this isn't really what we wanted, because we were really looking for something in the vein of Rainbow Six Vegas,
Yeah.
right?
Oh God, I loved
Uh,
Vegas too.
yeah, and Siege was already like not an asset flip, but like a mid-development turnaround from that original plan of Patriots, which was like a full
Yep.
Rainbow Six experience. And Siege, well, technically in that hero shooter realm, there's more going on with the gunplay and things like that. But I think, what I was saying is, like, back then we played it, it was more like that. It was like Rainbow Six, but with like a veneer of like skills based around these operators around it. Now I think it's gone much more heavily into the operators and what they can do, which is crazy
Hmm.
because of how many there are in there now. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I just like I don't even know if they made another like full AAA Rainbow Six, if I'd be interested. I probably wouldn't be, just because right off the bat it's Ubisoft. And like I don't trust them. I don't think they could make it if they wanted to. But it is
Yeah.
interesting to see this game's been plugging along just in the background with everything else that is come and gone.
Yeah. It's got to be another like tactical experience. I guess you could consider Siege as a tactical experience, but I
It's
don't know,
tricky to
man. It
talk
just
about. I get it. I get it. It is
yeah, it
tricky to
doesn't
talk
feel
about.
yeah, it doesn't feel like Vegas, and that was like peak
Yeah,
Rainbow Six to me.
but like it doesn't even feel like older Rainbow Six games. Like I've played a few of them. I can't name most of them. Vegas is really where it's at. Vegas and Vegas 2.
Yeah,
But I played some of the older ones too. I think there's like
there's a
it's gotta
bunch.
be, yeah. There's I'm trying to think of which one I played though. There's so many, like something Arrow. I
Broken
think
Arrow.
Broken Arrow, is that one of them? I might have played
Think
that
so.
one, if that's the case.
Yeah.
It could, but it's been so long I could just be hearing things and going, yeah. But something Arrow, probably Broken Arrow, like you said. I think I played that one, but Rainbow Vegas 2 was really where it was at. I think they nailed that perfect balance. I do think like that game struggled with map design. You know, like
Okay.
we gave Modern Warfare 2019 a lot of shit for not having a lot of playable maps. But like, how many maps do you remember from Rainbow Six Vegas 2 that wasn't just the Villa
I
map?
remember the convention center and the Villa map.
Yeah, well, the Villa map doesn't count, so you remember one map. I remember.
Okay.
I remember there was like one that was like in like a warehouse, and it was like a 3-lane, like a very rigid 3-lane map. But yeah, anyway,
No,
it's like
no, I remember the convention center pretty clearly and Villa pretty clearly.
everybody remembers Villa. Villa's like the best map in that game for
Yeah.
every mode. But yeah, that's yeah, that was a thing. Siege X,
Yeah,
the
whatever
new
the fuck
era
that
of
means.
Rainbow Six Siege. Get ready for the next 10 years. I wonder if they can make that. Like, what happens? What happens if Ubisoft creators like? This would be awkward. Right?
It would just go to a different company. I think that the game would still endure.
Probably. Yeah. We'll see.
Anyway, so the last thing that I want to talk about
Go
is
for it, man.
Killing Floor 3.
Mm-hmm.
They Tripwire lifted the embargo on the NDA beta, and I've watched a lot of gameplay over the past couple days, and I am pretty surprised to see just how split down the fucking middle people are with Killing Floor 3. There's like
Ooh,
one camp,
polarizing.
yeah, there's one camp that like can't stand looking at the game for various reasons that I'll get into in a second.
Okay.
And then there's another camp that is like, okay, this looks like a fun game, and I can't wait to try it. Like it's one of those two. Now the side that doesn't like it keep on saying this is not Killing Floor. This resembles nothing about Killing Floor. and that's the big gripe. And I think that what they mean when they say it's not killing floor is that all the stuff that they've shown in the marketing material does not say horror the way that Killing Floor 1 and 2 presented themselves as like a horror shooter.
Hmm.
It's it seems very, for lack of a better word, modernized. Like we no longer have a
Okay.
perk system, we now have specialists. And the specialists look they do look very bland. I will say
Oh
that.
no.
Yeah, no, they look bland cosmetically. Um, the way that they play, uh, there's some that I have no interest in. There are others that like I really want to try out. Like the ninja character, which is a melee-based character, has katanas and throwing stars. That it's like those are just the default weapons of this specialist.
Okay.
The throwing stars actually look like a ton of fun, and so do the swords. But you've played Killing Floor with me before, right?
Yes, we've played a lot of Killing Floor 2. There's even some
Yeah.
playthroughs on the channel of that, and we have separately played Killing Floor 1, uh,
Okay.
but not together.
So what I will say in my experience of both Killing Floor games is that it was very like horror oriented. There was like next to no movement system. You can run, but it barely felt like running. You can run a
Mhm.
little bit faster if you take out your knife, but it still like barely felt like it did anything.
Yeah.
Um, Killing Floor 3, like there's a slide, there's a jump, there's a mantle,
Oh
uh,
boy.
there's all this stuff. Yeah, but like I don't really mind that because that's just kind of quality of life more or less in today's gaming world. Um, but I will say the maps that I've seen from the gameplay footage that I've been watching look way better than the maps that they've showed off in the marketing material. Maybe this was intentional, maybe it wasn't, I don't know.
Mm.
But it's definitely more like horror oriented
Okay.
instead of like, oh, this is just a brightly lit map with enemies that you could spot coming from a mile away. Um, I am still looking forward to the game. I don't want this to
Okay.
seem like like I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Uh, it does look very modernized as far as the menu system goes,
Okay.
but do you remember me talking about how like they were always the perk system in Killing Floor 1 and 2, and now in 3 they have specialists, but the developers said that they wanted to do specialists in Killing Floor 2, but for
Yeah,
whatever
we
reason,
yeah
yeah,
we talked about this a while ago on I
yeah,
think one of the first or second time we talked about Killing Floor 3 on the podcast, we talked about this.
right. So this was the plan all along.
Mhm.
And I think they maybe could have like presented it a little bit better
Yeah,
because
that's what we said
now,
last time too.
yeah, because now like when you see all these specialists, you just think of modern gaming slop, and maybe there is a like a level of that in there because I watched the engineer gameplay today, and
Yeah.
like that looked uninspired, boring. I just don't want to touch that character.
Hmm.
Um, but the like Ninja and Mr. Foster, who was like the OG like poster child of the Killing Floor IP. It's like this British guy in a suit and a gas mask. You probably remember
Hmm.
him. Um, he's like the commando type of character.
Yes.
Uh, but like you could play as these specialists that have their own dedicated skills and abilities, but you can still use weapons from the other classes. And that was always the case in Killing Floor 1 and 2. You just didn't get the additional bonuses that came with using up like if you were a commando and you used a medic weapon, you wouldn't get all the benefits from having the commando perk tree.
Mhm.
And it's kind of the same thing. So I don't really know why people are flipping out so much as far as like this not being Killing Floor because the core principle is still kind of there. Like, yeah, you have ultimate abilities, which is kind of like okay, like whatever for me. Um, but the core DNA of like you choose a character, he's better with one set of weapons. You could still use the other ones, but you're not going to get the additional bonuses. Like that's all still present. So
Mhm.
I don't know why people are dogging on this game as much as they are. Um, and like honestly, like it at the end of the day, I still think it looks fun, and it's still a game that I am very much looking forward to and that I want to play. So I just found it fascinating how whenever I went to the comment section on YouTube just to see like what the temperature was with just random people watching it, it's like it's really just like right down the fucking middle. Like some people are
Mm.
looking forward to it, and some people like want nothing to do with it. But all the content creators that I've watched that got the NDA version of the beta, that again the embargo was lifted, so they can now publish it. Um, they all seem to be having a really good time with it. So, like I don't really know what to believe here. I'm gonna play it myself probably at some point tomorrow night because I'm pretty sure I got into the closed beta, but just not the NDA version. I'm just
Mhm.
waiting on my beta key, and I should be able to download it. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. And another thing that people seem to throw a lot of shade at is, and I kind of agree with this one. In Killing Floor 1 and 2, all the weapons were all real world guns. Like they were like the MP5 or the M4 or the Scar or like a Desert Eagle or whatever. Uh, Most of, if not all of the weapons in Killing Floor 3 are like the near future sci-fi
Mm.
arsenal. And that's
Okay.
the only point that I'm like, okay, this is kind of dumb, but I'll get around it. Like there's still a Scar in Killing Floor 3, but it's like kind of futury a little bit, but it still looks
Mhm.
like a Scar. It's weird. The design choice was kind of funky for that. Um, but in my experience, Tripwire has a very long track record of doing DLC packs and expansion, and not necessarily expansions, but just like title updates. So they added new shit to the game.
Mhm.
So it's probably going to be the same thing with Killing Floor 3. So I'm curious to see how they handle that. The only thing that I definitely don't want to make a return is the completely cursed microtransaction system from Killing Floor 2. Oh my God, what a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
That was
That
terrible.
was that was it was always so crazy to me, like coming back to the game every so often. It's just like, what have they done here with
It's
like
like it's
the
so hard. Like, okay, so however you feel about microtransactions, take that out of the equation. It was just difficult to understand how it worked. I had no idea what they were trying to sell me. And
Hmm.
every time I logged in, I was like, oh, there's like all this cash in my vault. What can I spend it on? All these different packs. What do I get in the packs? I don't know. Like, what do it was just, it was crazy. It was so unbelievably convoluted. I really hope they don't do that this time.
Yeah,
So we'll see
we'll
what
see what
happens. Moral of the
happens.
story is I've watched a lot of Killing Floor 3 gameplay. It looks more appealing than not to me, and I'm very excited to try it come tomorrow when I finally get my hands on the beta. And again, the marketing material did not do a great job of representing what the game is. All the YouTube videos that I've seen did a way better job. Oh, and you know how the whole gimmick of Killing Floor is the Z time thing, like the bullet time?
Yes.
Yeah, so in Killing Floor 1 and 2, it was all chance based. You got a critical kill, and like it could have gone into slow-mo, it could have not have gone into slow-mo. You didn't really know.
Hmm.
In this one, there's like a meter that you build up. The more enemies you kill in like quick succession, the more likely it is for, uh, or no, the meter fills up and you go into Z time, which I kind of like better. At least you know when it's coming, because you can line up different shots. Um, is you have it's way easier to get criticals when everything is slow, obviously. So I do like that better than the way that they used to do it. But I will say the one thing, the major thing that I really am not a fan of is that I, you came with me to Comic-Con that one year, right? And we sat in the Killing Floor 2 booth, and the developers like went over
Oh
the new shit in
yeah.
the game. You
Yeah, I
remember
was
that?
there. Yep.
Right. Do you remember when they said that the game was rendered in a higher frame rate during the bullet time, and you
Yes.
could see everything like way clearer
Hmm.
during Z time as opposed to just regular game? Like they
Yes.
apparently that's not in the game.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like I can't remember if I've
Yeah.
definitely asked about this last time, and I think at the point they hadn't confirmed this or not. But like,
Yeah,
damn,
apparently it's not there. Well,
that's
like that
ridiculous.
was, yeah, that's a crazy design choice. Like that was anyone who really liked Killing Floor, like that was one of the main things they would point to, like that made it so awesome. And it's just taken like that, that breaks my heart. So I don't want to
That's
end it on a
unfortunate.
negative note, but like that's the last thing that I remember. Yeah.
I mean, everything you told me, it actually reminds me of a different situation. You know, when it comes to it being a very polarizing release and it being split, and you have like all the different people taking their sides in the position. No, this doesn't really look like Killing Floor and all that. I mean, that's something that has been have kind of learned to be hypersensitive to, because a lot of series have lost their identity over the years. Like that, like they're. I'm kind of excited for it, but at a certain point, I do want to go through year over year and just look at how all the different series were kind of massacred. But that's besides the point.
Mm.
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of Resident Evil 6. Because when Resident Evil 6 was making the rounds and it was coming out the first time, it had an extremely polarized reception from Resident Evil fans. Because you had people saying, this is nothing like Resident Evil, it's too action-oriented. And you had on the other side, you had people saying, Resident Evil was always about, experimenting and changing things up, and it looks a lot of fun. So it reminds... The only thing that comes close to what you're describing to me right now, as far as like a polarized fan base, is Resident Evil 6. Take that for what you will.
Yeah. Yeah, I am going to end it with the statement that I am looking forward to the game. I'm excited to play it, and it looks better than not.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So it looks more appealing to me than it does not, and that's probably all I could really ask for. Like it's a horde shooter that has a lot of progression built in, and I love shooting things in the face in video games. So I'm excited enough about Killing Floor. I mean, I'm still shocked that it's getting made. So
after all this
there's
time.
that. Yeah. But that's the last thing that I wanted to touch upon.
Okay.
If you got anything?
I do. It's less of like a full story, but just something. I don't know if you had heard about it. Follow up. We've been talking about this developing thing for months and months, and we'll be talking about it for probably the next 5 years if the timeline's anything to go by. But did you hear anything about Phil Spencer's latest appearance on there was an Xbox related podcast? You hear anything about that?
No, I have not. I'm sure this is going to be good though.
We are slipping further down that slope that everybody knows we're on when it comes to Xbox and releasing on other platforms, and publishing versus being focusing more on their publishing endeavors than they are the Xbox core experience and things like that. Because we've slipped to the next step, and he said this is like, from now on at Xbox Directs, we are going to proudly show the PlayStation logo and the Switch logo for games that are going to those platforms for transparency purposes. And I'm just like, ooh.
Yeah, big
like, here's the thing. Like, pretty much every single trailer, like, if you pay attention, like an hour after the event or right as the event wraps, the PlayStation or the Switch version of the trailers do come out. So it's like, it's just like a slippery slope. You never want to go down these slippery slopes in anything. Like, we've seen so many slopes that over the last 10 years of varying degree throughout our lives, just flying down them. And I do not like the direction this is going. But throughout the podcast, like, he basically made a bunch of statements that line up with what I was guessing when it came to Xbox and what their plans are and their endeavors. And it is very much focusing on kind of like slyly, like the way he worded it, he made it out like he was taking like little jabs and pot shots, because he's leveraging the state of the industry that I keep pointing out, where it's like nobody's doing particularly well. So in his mind, in the way that he was wording these things, it's basically like, it's just like, oh, we're gonna put the games on the different platforms we're able, everyone's gonna be able to play, yada yada yada. And it's just like, sure, it's nice to make 100% of the sale revenue from like releasing it on the Xbox, but I'll also be happy to take 70% off of other consoles. So it's just like, it's pretty much what I had assumed and what everybody had assumed, where it's just like, regardless of where they're taking Xbox, this is really just about them winning in a revenue battle, because Xbox publishing as like a studio has been really, like, their revenue is going up and up and up more than most people outside of like maybe Nintendo, So Yeah, I mean, there's not too much to say there. It's just we're just sliding down that slope.
Yeah.
I do think, like, they asked him again, like, oh, you committed to the Xbox, and he's not giving definitive answers, but it basically aligns with what I'd guessed and what a lot of analysts are saying, where it's like on the Xbox, it's going to be about preserving your existing library, like your legacy library, and your services being better than on other platforms, because I said this last time. I don't see Game Pass going to any other consoles. And even if they were to put that on other consoles, or if they wanted to, I should say, I don't think Nintendo wants Game Pass on the Switch. I don't think Sony wants Sony definitely doesn't want Game Pass on the PlayStation, because that would eat into their PlayStation Plus subscriptions.
Oh
So
yeah.
I
Big time.
don't think it's tenable in any way, shape, or form. So I think I'm gonna say again that I think the next 5 years for Xbox is really going to be about doubling down on services. I think that they are gunning for an upcoming service war. I don't think it's warranted. I think it's really, we've been pushed to this point not by an evolving industry, but by the fact that everybody's doing so poorly, and the industry has been neutered to such an extent that it's literally like, this is how the guys at the top are going to make their money. Services. It's not about like games and pushing everybody, pushing each other to the limits to make great experiences. It's just idle, stagnant, declining. That's where we're at, in one of those three places. We're not rising up. So I don't know. It's just a little ramble, but I mean, we talked about this last week, where like how we feel about that. I don't think it's good.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure you're in the same camp.
Yeah, I
So
don't think it's a great idea for them to be you know, uh, double dipping as it were.
yeah, it's literally like, I said this last week. I'm gonna say it again. Like, it would be something if, like, 5 years from now, right? They get the Game Pass installations they want. They, at the very least, don't lose much of their install base.
Hmm.
Because there's no way around it. People are gonna be buying less Xboxes because of this. Not entirely, because there are some people that, even though it's very unhealthy for the industry, and not something core gamers really want, there are people who look at what Xbox is offering, and they're saying, yeah, this is what I want. I really don't give a shit about The Last of Us or God of War. I don't give a shit about. I want a console I can plop down. It's a little cheaper. They get the Xbox Series S. They get a Game Pass subscription. They get all these games, because Game Pass. The one thing I'll say about Game Pass, and I don't think either of us have really paid too much attention just to the month over month. We don't have like charts and things, anything like that. But they've been really good with heavy hitters in certain areas and keeping them on there since they split Game Pass and Game Pass Core up, Game Pass Ultimate and Game Pass Core. It's definitely been more
Sure.
stable with like their massive offerings, and that's going to be hugely, what's it called? It's going to be hugely palatable to more people, so that it's that whether or not the service grows in any meaningful fashion, it's definitely strengthening, I would say. And I keep saying the next 5 years, because their goal is either 2030 or 2032. They want like 30 million, some ridiculous number. I keep forgetting it each time. I remember less and less of their Game Pass goals, but we'll see where that ends up, and then we'll see what the next move is, because I can only imagine, if nothing of this strategy works, what they're gonna do in 5 years.
Yeah.
So, fingers
Yeah, I
crossed.
don't know. Xbox's future is very murky, so we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, and I'll just keep saying, and not that anyone, not that we're getting hit with this kind of stuff, but I keep saying this. It has nothing to do with brand loyalty. It's just, you do
Yeah.
not want an industry with shrinking platforms. It's
Mhm.
already bad enough as it is. You don't want less competition.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
We'll see.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but that's all I got.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I got too.
All right. Well, on that note, this was episode 43 of the Pregame
Yes.
Network podcast. I remembered.
Attaboy.
Um, so we'll be back next week for more shenanigans and bullshit.
Yes.
Hopefully something a little bit more interesting happens this coming week.
Hopefully something positive.
Yeah. Well,
Otherwise, all you'll have to look forward to is that that upcoming fighting game community rant.
oh
That'll
God,
be fun.
please. All right. Well, that about does it for us, and we'll be back next week. So thanks for tuning in, and bye.
Bye bye.